the ego wasn't always part of human nature, and the ego has morphed over the centuries. The ego that people had 2,000, 3,000 years ago was not at all like the ego of the postmodern period that we're now in, which is why the traditional teachings of Buddhism and Christianity and Hinduism don't work, because the ego was in a much more pure and simple state. And now it's very complex and very easily breaks down. Just like our software and our computers now, right? They do so much, but they break down very easily. So we have to simplify and create a different kind of ego structure, and then it's much easier to transcend the ego. But the ego today is a multitasking ego that's constantly externalized, and it wasn't created by itself. It's not a self-organizing principle. It was taken in. You were indoctrinated into believing the ego, and in fact it was a demand put on you by your mother and father and your family system, and then the school system and the cultural system and all of that. And your ego is an internalization of rules and commands and demands and compromises and rebellions and all kinds of things that cause it not to be integrated within itself. But it is a reflection of the environment and of the adversity of that environment in terms of the projections put on you by the shadows of other people who you identified with, and they became parts of the ego. So it's all a construct, but a very complex tissue of thoughts and images and ideas and desires and fears. But when you get distance from it, you can let the whole thing go at once.
Do you think an animal has an ego?
That everyone's always...
Not an animal.
An animal? Yes. Domesticated animals do. The wild ones, no, but they have instincts. And those instincts function to give them an identity, but it's not an ego. But the domesticated dogs and cats, they take on the human ego and the command system, and they become very neurotic.